It was week 5 in the NFL, and what a difference 8 months makes. Super Bowl participants, the Chiefs and the 49ers, both get upset. Another team wins, but they lose their star for the rest of the season. We'll talk all about it and get you ready for week 6 with our favorite Survivor picks, all coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the fantasy football consultants.
That's why they play the games. Super surprising results this week in the NFL.
Yeah, so many games came down to the wire. You know, a couple games where teams who were the underdogs had a nice solid win. You know what? This is the NFL, right? It's just different than any other league I ever see.
Yeah, okay, come on, Michael. Go ahead, brag about your Raiders.
All right, so let's talk about those Raiders.
Upset. What was up with that? How did they do it?
So let me just take a second here and make sure that I enjoy the win.
Oh, gosh.
And you know what? Call out for a little bit of respect. Not only did they win that game by more than a touchdown, 8 points, but they had that game in hand with 5-10 minutes left to go in the game. Everybody thinks that, Mahomes can come back at any moment of time. And obviously this was an offensive game, but how about the Raiders defense? I mean, that was a fun game to watch if you're a Raiders fan.
Yeah. So you give credit. Is it that you're going to give the win to your defensive side?
It's those front four. They talked about, if you watch part of the game, they talked about how Gruden really challenged that front four on the defensive line. And you could see they were giving Mahomes fits. And obviously he still, did some really impressive things. He's just a talented guy. But he was under pressure all night long.
Yeah. So bad week for the Super Bowl teams. Not only did the Chiefs go down, but the Niners.
Annihilated.
By the Miami Dolphins. How do you explain that?
I don't know. I mean, that game wasn't even close. It was done at halftime.
Quick moment to both praise. The two teams the team that we both picked, the Cowboys. But I got to tell you, Michael, I was sweating. You had to be sweating when you had Andy Dalton back there, and the game was still very close late.
Hey, the Cowboys were losing when Andy Dalton came into the game. By 1 point, and Dak had moved him down the field before that had happened. And man, what a blow that is. Yes, I was sweating it. I was sweating it. They were barely winning 24-23 or losing 24-23 at that moment in the game. But it did seem like that the balance was moving in the Cowboys' direction, and they did win one for their guy, thankfully for us.
All right. Well, tell us, we did okay. How did the rest of the people on our own FFC Survivor Pool do?
Well, those two games that you mentioned early were the downfall of those who we lost. We lost 8 this week. 4 were who had picked Kansas City. What were they thinking? And 4 who had picked the Niners over the Dolphins, mistakenly. Most folks went with the Dallas Cowboys, so we would have had a little bit of a tragedy if they would have gone down, and Baltimore was the second most picked. So
okay,
we're down to
following us, guys. We may not be right.
Exactly. We're down to 49. And 2 people had to last minute pick New Orleans. And if you watch that Monday night game, the Chargers should have won that game. I mean, if it wasn't for that goalpost being just an inch thicker, if it was an inch thinner, that would have been a nice win for the Chargers. So, this year is as tough as I've seen in the first 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah, just the uncertainty of not only the games, but how about uncertainty of the schedule? And it affects our week 6 NFL spreads, because I made a big deal saying I need to save the Ravens for this week. And lo and behold, not 1, but 2 really key games. One got delayed into this week. That's the New England-Denver game. And then one got moved up from week 10. That was the Miami Jet game. So let's go over the spreads. Tennessee is 5.5-point favorites at home against Houston. The Colts are, if you haven't used them yet, are 7.5-point favorites at home against Cincinnati. And then we got the real big three games. Baltimore on the road, 7.5-point favorites at Philadelphia. And then Miami, 8-point favorites at home over the Jets. And then New England, the big spread favorite, 8.5-point favorites over Denver. Let's start with that Houston, Tennessee game. We just off the heels of Tennessee absolutely burying the Buffalo Bills on Tuesday night. Boy, did they look good. And I just have one question, Michael. How is Houston, who's 1-4, who's lost to 4 good teams and could only beat Jacksonville, that defense, which is really bad, especially against the run, how are they going to stop Derrick Henry? The last time they played, which was the last game of last year, he only ran for 211 yards against it.
Yeah, based on what happened during the Buffalo game tonight, Tennessee looks like they're just going to run away with this division, especially with the Colts having a down week and being a little bit, who knows what they are going to show up with, each week. To me, if there was more than 5 nights between the Tuesday night game and the Sunday game, I think that I would say this is a slam dunk for Tennessee. Even though Houston did show a little bit of life finally on the offensive side of the ball, I think you're right. I don't think that Houston's going to be able to stop Henry, but how the teams are when they have to turn around on a Sunday and play on a Thursday. That's basically what's happening here, right?
Yeah. And there's still going to be a lot of uncertainty of how many of their players, a whole ton of them were out due to the health crisis that's going on, and a lot of their receiving core. So that's what was so surprising, that they were able to handle Buffalo even without those players. Yeah, I'm going to pass. Indianapolis Colts, like you said, they're now 3-2, 7.5-point favorites.
The Cincinnati team, I think, is showing, despite Burrow's, efforts, is showing that they're very stoppable on the offensive side of the ball. So Indianapolis should win this game. It's kind of written in the script for them. But, we've seen Phillip Rivers now twice, and not just Phillip Rivers. Basically this team play very poorly against mediocre to poor teams. And so, for that reason, I think this is not a comfortable pick. And furthermore, most of our viewers have picked Indianapolis already.
It reminds me, unfortunately, of the first game, where it feels like I'm saying the same thing. I mean, I would expect the Colts to dominate the both offensive and defensive line of Cincinnati. But as you pointed out, they're 1 or 2 errant passes by Phillip Rivers away from losing this game. And Cincinnati, even though somehow Baltimore was basically able to shut them down completely, I don't think the Colts will be able to do that. So I'm more confident that Tennessee's going to win the game than Indianapolis. So even if I had Indianapolis on my table and it was just these 2 games, I would go with Tennessee. How about you?
I'm a little bit afraid of the turnaround and the, like you say, the health ramifications. So I think these are both tough games, but I'll be surprised if the underdogs win either.
Our picks sound like it's going to be one of the remaining 3 games. Baltimore on the road, 4-1 at Philadelphia, who is 1-3-1. Let me just be very clear here. Baltimore is far superior than Philadelphia. I don't care if this is being played in Baltimore, whether it's being played in Philadelphia, or whether it's being played on the moon. Baltimore should win this. Now, remember, last week I told you I was saving Baltimore for this game. So I had full expectations of picking Baltimore. But now that we have a couple of games, I'm going to hold off on making my decision. What's your take?
I think because Baltimore still has plenty of future value going forward. This is a very good team. And I think that there's a good chance that they maybe not run the table, but go strong for the rest of the season, right? 8-3 or 9-2. So I like this game. I think Carson Wentz is showing that he's not what everybody was hoping for, but they did show some life against Pittsburgh. A very good defense, showed the ability to push the ball downfield, even though they were really just left with this one receiver. And Miles Sanders can break one, as we saw. So, I think this is a pretty safe game. Philadelphia not having all their fans, although how they can really impact the game at the fan level when they're all there, I think makes it to where, they really won't have that home field advantage. It's a pretty safe game, but there's, like you say, at least one more that I like better.
Yeah. One thing I would say, you're right, they do have future value, but it's not for a while. It's week 13, 15, and 16. So you got to wait a long time.
Well, that's a good point.
Who knows?
So this wouldn't be a bad spot to pick Baltimore. So right. I think I like this game as much as the remaining games.
Yeah, and I was fully expecting to pick Baltimore, but let's see. We got two other games. Let's talk about it. The Miami Dolphins are now this week going to be hosting the 0-5 New York Jets. It's not that they've just lost all 5 of the games, Michael. They've lost by 10, by 11, by 18, by 20, and by 29. All the Jet fans are really depressed, even the fans from another species. Look at this picture, Michael. I mean, the shame that's involved. I mean, that putting a Jet jersey on a dog this season, that's animal cruelty.
Yeah, and now they just let Le'Veon Bell go. So I think that they're basically letting the season go. And with what the Dolphins were able to do this last week, and looks pretty good the week before as well, I think that this should be a pretty solid win. I'm still not a believer in the Dolphins, but I'm definitely a believer against the Jets.
Yeah. Who's going to be the quarterback? Doesn't matter. The other bonus is that Miami has zero future value. But let's give it up a little bit for Miami. The bottom line is the last 4 games, they've actually played pretty well. They came close to beating the Buffalo Bills and the Seattle Seahawks. They're a combined 9-1 so far this year. And they really beat up badly the Jacksonville Jaguars and the San Francisco 49ers. The one thing that I don't like about this game is the crowd loves the game. 40% of the people are picking this game. That's a large percentage to pick a Miami Dolphin team that is 2-3. But I'll let you know in a minute who I'm going to pick. The New England Patriots are 8.5-point favorites over Denver. You know what? We could just replay our conversation from last week if people would like, because we already talked about this game a week ago, but it was postponed to this week. So I say the same thing, Michael, that I said last week. I want to know who's going to be the quarterback on both teams.
Well, I really liked this game this last week, and I think I even like it more because you give Belichick an extra week to get his team ready, and he's gonna figure out a way to outcoach Denver, even if he doesn't have his best guy going. I think the bigger threat is not having Gilmore, and so that's who I want to determine whether he's playing. And so for me, it makes sense that this has the biggest spread. I think Belichick will find a way to have Denver have no chance in this game. But if Gilmore's out, I think that becomes a little more challenging because he's the best defensive back on their team. So that's what I want to see before I decide. I would probably pick this game if I knew Gilmore was playing, again, because New England has no future value. I know the Dolphins don't either. And certainly I think the Jets are a poorer team than Denver, but I think that New England is a more capable team because of their coaching and how well they know their team. So I think you can pick any one of these 3 games, including Baltimore, feeling pretty safe.
I'm going to disagree with you on 2 accounts because we got to keep this interesting. One is I hear you on Gilmore, but I am not picking a Brian Hoyer-led team. I'm just not going to. So if Brian Hoyer is the starting quarterback, I will never pick New England. You said they have zero future value. They do have the Jets in the division that they haven't played. So they get the Jets at home and away. But in fairness, I believe one of those games is the last week of the season, which A, is ridiculously far in the future, and B, you don't even know if New England will care about that game. So I agree, they don't have much future value, but it's getting to the point of you should be looking to see who's left on the Jets schedule to see if you want to save a team or not. So it's time to make a decision. As of this moment, I don't know who's going to be the quarterback of New England, so I am not going to pick New England. I don't like the 40% crowd going with Miami, but I'm going to join them. So my pick is the Miami Dolphins. Boy, it just kind of like is a bad little. Let me rephrase that. My pick is against the New York Jets.
Come on, be proud, be proud. Well, you kind of swayed me with your comment about New England's future value. I did forget they still have the Jets on their schedule. And even though I don't always want to just be picking against, I think this is a safe week to pick against. With Le'Veon Bell being let go, with this game being kind of a last minute change and what we just saw out of Miami, I think this is the safest bet on the menu. So I'm going to go with the crowd and you as well.
So our week 6 picks, I am going with the Dolphins. Michael is going with the Dolphins. The crowd is going with the Dolphins. And Las Vegas is the one outsider. They are going with the Patriots as the highest spread of the week, and they hadn't picked the Patriots yet. So it'll be really interesting to see if once again our FFC community follows us, Michael, or maybe follows you. It would be okay to follow you. You're still undefeated, but we'll see. Let's talk a little bit about last week. We predicted the AFC division winners. Let's look at the NFC. So we'll start out west. Seattle's 5-0. The Rams are right behind them at 4-1. Arizona's 3-2, and the NFC defending champs, San Francisco 49ers, are 2-3. The question is, who is going to take the NFC crown? Michael, there are only 3 possible correct answers you can give here. Either you pick A, Seattle, B, the Seahawks, or C, the Seattle Seahawks. Who's your pick?
I tell you, they should have lost that game against Minnesota. Poor coaching. That's the second time third time really, it's come down to the very end. The Seattle defense is not impressing me. They just got pushed around, frankly, by Minnesota. But I actually think they also have an easier schedule, and I'm not sure what we're going to see out of the Rams. And I think we've already seen from the Cardinals and the Niners that they're not there. So I think your Seahawks are going to win the division, but good luck to them in the playoffs.
All right, so let me try to break it down without trying to be biased. Their secondary is still one that struggles. They don't put enough pressure on the quarterback, but Jamal Adams is going to help when he comes back. They haven't had him the last couple of weeks. They go into their bye, so hopefully they come out pretty healthy. As you mentioned, still on their schedule in 3 weeks in a row is the Jets, the Giants, and the Redskins. So that's good. And then most of the rest of their schedule is within the division. All right, let's move to the NFC South. It's a 3-way tie so far. New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and surprisingly, Carolina. And many of those games without their consensus best player, Christian McCaffrey. I don't know. My take on this one is, as much as Carolina is 3-2 without McCaffrey, the Saints are 3-2 without Michael Thomas. And I think that is huge. I still think New Orleans is going to win this division.
Well, the Saints have looked really bad the last several weeks and kind of pulled out a couple squeakers. Their defense is not what they were a year ago, but that could be just getting the jitters out, or just like you say, adjusting for the fact that they haven't had Michael Thomas, who I think has greatly affected Breeze. So that could be a part of it. He's going to open things up for their backfield as well. So, but what about Tampa Bay? I mean, you can't ignore what Tom Brady can do with that offense, even with some of the injuries that they've had. So, I think this is New Orleans to lose, but I think they could lose it.
Who's your pick?
I'm gonna give a nod to Bruce Arians and the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Okay, I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask you anyway. Who won when Tampa Bay and New Orleans played earlier this year? All right, but I think it was in New Orleans, so Tampa Bay is going to get them in Tampa Bay. So we'll see. Good. I like it when we don't always agree. All right. Oh boy, here comes the NFC East. We've got the Dallas Cowboys are 2-3 and leading the division.
Dominantly. Solid lead
with Philadelphia 1-3-1 and Washington 1-4. And I guess I have to say the Giants, they're only 2 games back at 0-5.
Yeah, two games back from the Dak-less Cowboys, right? And so, I mean, anyone can win this division. That's how whoever wins 5 games wins this division.
Who do you like? Or who do you dislike the least?
I think that Philadelphia should win this division. They've played some tough games. They I think will win most of the intra-division games. They're going to get the Cowboys without Dak Prescott. It looks like twice because it looks like he's done for the season.
The problem with the Cowboys, who are in first place, besides the fact that they have they have Andy Dalton now as their starter, is their defense is just awful. And you go, well, they won 2 games. Do you know the teams they beat? They beat the Giants and Atlanta, a combined 0-10. So they've beaten 2 teams, have a combined record of 0-10. One that had to fire the coach. They were so frustrated with how poorly they're playing. So I can't go with the Cowboys. I probably would have if Dak was healthy. I think they may squeak by, but not with Andy Dalton. And I have no respect for Washington and the Giants. Sorry. So I agree with you. Philadelphia Eagles win the division again.
5-10-1 division champion.
How about the NFC North, where we've got undefeated 4-0 Green Bay Packers and surprising in my book 4-1 Chicago Bears right at their heels.
Yeah, with a nice solid win over the I can't beat Nick Foles Tampa Bay Buccaneers or Tom Brady Buccaneers. I've been impressed with what the Bears were able to do in this last game, which looked like Tampa Bay was going to take care of business on Thursday night. But the Packers right now, some think are the best team in the league on both sides of the ball, looking good. Aaron Rodgers all of a sudden, coming back to form after a relatively down year. Both their running backs are healthy. They're going to get Devontae Adams back this week. They're coming off a bye. They're going to probably make a nice little run. I think it's theirs to win. I'd be surprised if they don't win the division.
Yeah, I agree. And again, people forget that they were in the NFC Championship game last year, and they have all their key ingredients on offense back, and they look very good. As a Seahawks fan, when I look out at who's going to be in their way to get to the Super Bowl, this is the team I'm most afraid of.
Yeah, and they should be able to stay. They don't really have a super tough schedule other than intra-division going forward, and so they probably will be the 1 seed coming out unless your guy can continue to get these last minute wins all the time.
Well, that's the big deal because only one team gets that bye now with the 3 playoff wild card teams. So yeah, that's a big deal.
The Seahawks do have an easier schedule, depending on how you look at the division.
All right. Well, Michael, we will see how all these divisions play out throughout the year. I want to once again thank our FFC community. You guys are coming full board in the comment section, letting us know your Survivor analysis. Please keep it up. And if you haven't yet, please hit the red subscriber button. Join the family. We are approaching 7,000 subscribers, and I can't thank you guys enough.
Yeah, thank you. And as Eric mentioned, please continue to provide your picks and why.
All right, until we see you next week, and again, keep our fingers crossed that everyone out there and in the NFL stay healthy. We'll see you next time.
All right, thanks, guys.